Hello everyone, it's Arcade Note here, and today I will be speaking about Live Alive, a solid JRPG experience with zero marketing from Square Enix. Again. Here we go again. Live Alive is originally an SNES game that was launched back in '94. I tried this game with magical ways of emulation like years ago, but couldn't play it until the end. Main logic is quite simple. There are 8 different characters, 8 different timelines, and 8 different stories, gameplay concepts that keeps Live Alive shockingly fresh. From Prehistoric Era to even science fiction, each timeline and main character provides a different approach and different concepts that always keeps this interesting atmosphere along with it. Each timeline takes around 2 to 3 hours in general, and my whole Live Alive journey took around 25 hours, which I even fought against super bosses of several timelines, collecting the best in slot gears by the last chapter. I'll be talking about each era without giving any spoilers, introducing the main characters and the gameplay also. But before that, it is worth to mention that the new Live Alive version is indeed a remake from SNES version, which made the game quite similar to Octopath Traveler in terms of visuals, so this is another plus for me. Live Alive lets you decide on which era you want to start first. From Prehistoric Era to Imperial China, Japanese Edo Era, Wild West present time, close future and science fiction. Each timeline has different characters with different goals, and if the players complete all of them, another timeline appears that leads to the final 9th chapter of the game, where each main character meets with each other and conclude the story. Each chapter having the same battle system, where the characters move in blocks, consuming their action bar to make a move or trying to stay away from their opponents. Each movement also charges a bit of the action bar of the enemies, so it is wise to think beforehand how much to move and when to attack. Nearly each attack of the main character is different. From melee attacks to ranged elemental attacks, they can inflict high damage or sometimes cause status effects depending on the weaknesses of the enemies. From punch, kick, aerial to piercing damage, blunt and even elementals, there are lots of, and I mean lots of attack type that makes Live Alive's combat fresh and sometimes even challenging. Characters like Obaramura, the ninja main character of Edo Japan, can throw, for example, shurikens, cast poison mist, or even phoenix-like fire attack to inflict damage, where the close future main character Akira mostly inflicts damage through status effect due to using psychic powers, casting moves like Mother Shame attack to cause panic amongst his enemies. To be honest, only 2 characters are quite similar, the main character from Imperial China and present day, as they both use martial arts to attack and focus mostly on punch and kicks.
あんた、今幸せか?
So let's start with Pogo, the main character of Prehistoric Era. As you can guess, there is no dialogue in Prehistoric Era. They try to communicate through gestures, yelling and pointing, so right from the start Live Alive begins unique and strange. Our main character Pogo and his sidekick Gori hit with clubs, farts and shits, sometimes even roar to inflict damage against Prehistoric Era threats. Unique concept of this era is that you need to craft by combining 2 different items. Collect a hard rock and combine it with a stick and boom, you make a spear. Mix dry pelt and animal fang to... I don't know, you experiment. There is no list of collectibles or crafting items within the game, so it is pure experimental approach, unless you use a guide. On the other hand, even though Prehistoric Era sounds unique and fun, well, when it's compared to other timelines and main characters, it kinda falls short. It might be one of the weakest timelines when compared to other ones, so yeah, even if this concept sounds interesting, you're gonna love Live Alive, baby. Oh, and by the way, this timeline has a Mammoth King super boss in it, which might be even tougher than the last boss. If you beat it, you will receive a nice accessory item that you can use by the last 9th chapter, so good luck. Next, we have Imperial China. An old kung fu master is looking for disciples before he passes away. My only criticism about Imperial China is its probably soundtracks. It literally has one soundtrack for battles, and this timeline has lots of both normal and boss encounters, so the music kinda gets dull after a while. This story can give you the vibe of old Jackie Chan movies, where you try to find 3 different disciples, train them and teach them your own techniques. It does not have any super boss, but has a unique gimmick, and in order to help you a bit, and by not spoiling anything, all I can say is choose only one disciple to train and focus on it. From its visuals to fights, Imperial China feels like a kung fu movie that you feel familiar with. Though, as I mentioned before, the main character of present day might be a better choice when it comes to the combat attributes. You kick, punch, and all animations are basically matching with kung fu and martial arts taste. Next, we have probably one of the best and the most unique timelines, Edo Japan. You find yourself as a ninja called Obaramura who tries to infiltrate a castle to rescue a prisoner and then take down the lord of that castle. Easy and simple and maybe even generic ninja approach, right? Well, what if I say that Obaramura has two kinds of gameplay styles that rewards the players? First one is that you literally kill no one. Run away if you get in combat, hide with your ninjutsu and aim only for bosses, rescue the prisoner by not killing anyone. This rewards you a precious item, but you will stay as level 1 for the last chapter. And if you kill everyone, and I mean everyone, you're gonna level up to maybe 13 or 14 level and then can beat 2 super bosses within this timeline, do amazing looking moves and get a special katana called Muramasa. It is totally up to you. It is also one of the best looking chapters of Live Alive. From castle exteriors to maze-like corridors, it really captures the whole Edo Japan feeling and maybe even similar to Tenchu. With 2 super bosses and a huge map, it is also one of the longest timeline chapter.
いい加減にしちょけや。
And now comes one of the most impressive but shortest timeline of them all, Wild West, with its main character Sundown Kid as an outlaw, trying to prepare a town against an attack of band of outlaws. Once again, it is quite unique in terms of concept, with story beginning and we learn about Sundown Kid and bounty hunter that tries to capture or kill him. Whole story turns into a race against time. We literally have 8 minutes to collect materials within the town, from horse dung to shovels, moonshines to carrots. We order citizens of the town to prepare traps for outlaws so that the end boss of that timeline becomes easier and easier. If you fail at planting the traps, the end boss will face you with his lackeys, making the last standoff quite hard. Although Sundown Kid's story is short, trust me, it was quite unique and an unforgettable experience. I love Wild West and the whole approach and wanted to see more of Sundown Kid. After that comes present day, with more like a fighting game, namely Street Fighter-like story. Our main character Masanori is trying to be the best and tries to fight against various opponents, making this timeline more like a boss rush mode. But with each encounter, Masanori can learn the moves of his opponents, from German suplex to submission moves, making him quite effective by the last chapter and stronger than the Imperial China main character. My advice will be to hold against every unique attack of your opponent to learn them, or use a guide for this chapter to make Masanori stronger, otherwise you might have some troubles later on. Each boss have 2 special moves that Masanori can learn, and only by the Hawaiian dude you need to make some specific moves to learn the 3rd move, and you should be pretty okay. Right after Edo Japan, I found the close future timeline quite interesting, as our main character can use psychic powers to read minds or inflict psychological pressure on its enemies to inflict damage while fighting against a motorbike gang called Crusaders. What a coincidence, but our main character's name is also Akira, travels around the map, going from one goal to another, trying to stop these Crusader bikers more like in typical Kamen Rider or let's say 90s anime style way. From gang wars to giant robots, there are lots of plot twists, sometimes even cheesy, but all of these elements yet again provide a unique experience, especially with Akira's fighting style and close future soundtracks. It is not as long as Edo Japan timeline, but still takes around 2 to 3 hours to complete, but provides no super boss whatsoever, mostly a story that needs to be followed. Last but definitely not least, before the secret chapter comes Cube, a sphere-like robot in a spaceship that carries a personnel delivering a cargo to the Earth. And boy, if you expect the Star Wars kind of setup here, well, guess again. Science fiction era is indeed a horror, survival experience that is influenced both from Alien movies and Stanley Kubrick's Space Odyssey, and I believe just by saying this, I spoiled enough and won't mention anything further. Science fiction feels more like a visual novel in most of times, watching the situation of the crew members from a wholesome robot cube and unveil the mystery of this journey. The rest is up to you to discover. And by clearing 7 chapters, the 8th chapter Middle Age will be unlocked. And by clearing the Middle Age, 9th chapter will appear to conclude the story with each character from different timelines appear. To be honest, I really don't want to speak further to spoil anything for you guys here, as my only criticism about the last chapter will be the amount of random encounters and lack of additional challenges, I believe. The last chapter has 7 different dungeons, matching with 7 different characters that has a unique weapon and gear inside, but all these challenges were still easier than the Mammoth King. I wish there was a new map or a new dungeon for the remake that would let me control all of the characters at the same time with optimum gear to challenge it, but it was mostly like level up your characters, get a good gear and beat the boss, GG, well played kinda approach. Yet again, Live Alive is a solid JRPG experience that is shockingly stays fresh at all times. If you have Nintendo Switch, it is a must-play experience for everyone, as Live Alive can be your first JRPG entry to the genre, or even if you're a JRPG veteran, it doesn't matter. It's good, fresh and a solid experience. And I hope it gets released for other platforms as soon as possible also.
Nani ka you ka? 聞きたいのはこっちの方だ。